So hi, I'm Doug Hocking, and the thing I think that's most important for me about the church is that it gives such a sense of community. Like most people, um, I came from another church, from Roy's church, way back in the 60s. And the world was, this countryside was quite a different place in that time. There were many churches just only a couple miles apart. I came from Roy's Church, which was just down the road from Mount Pleasant, and that wasn't too far from Monroe or Carlingford either. And Roy's being my home church, from being a wee tad, I have most of my memories are there. Like when Dad would take us up into church for the long, boring sermons, he would give us little toys to play with. And I was particularly fond of a little steam engine until one day it rolled off the pew and happened to land on its wheels, and it rolled all the way from the middle of the church all the way under all the pews right up to the front. And after that we got no toys to play with during the sermons. um, I was part of the choir at Roy's with cousins and aunts and uncles from the 11th concession of Hibbert, the McLeans and Pridhams and Dows, and some of the names that you'll recognize. And I remember we always used to like uh, going out from our breaks and choir practice and sneaking under the fence or between the fence and throwing stones into the gravel pit out behind and watching them all, see who could throw the farthest out in the water. Or when the weather was good, we would go across the road to the cemetery and we would heave walnuts at each other as we ran and played amongst all the tombstones, which also the parents tended to frown upon from time to time. Like my dad before me, the old organ in the choir was a pump organ. You had a big lever in the back and foot pedals for the organist to work on. And I got $5 a year to pump the organs and $5 for each wedding. The standing at the back, when you're 8, 9, 10, you tend to get bored pretty quickly, and there's a pressure gauge in the front. Had a little needle on it and two scratches on the white back, and you had to keep the needle on. And you get bored, right? You're supposed to keep it up at the top one, so you'd try various different pumping schemes. You'd see how low you could keep it, or you'd pump it up fast, or you'd try and just hold it at a certain level with a stroke. But if you ever let it go too low, Mary F. Dow, the organist, would have to add pressure. And Dad could see Mary F. start to add pressure, and she'd look around behind the organ to give me that look, and all of a sudden the organ would pump up the pressure, and Dad would laugh because he knew exactly what was going on, because he'd been exactly the same. So my first experience with Thames View is again related to singing. All the little schools around the area would have a music festival every year, and all the grades you'd have to go sing. And I was the only boy in grade 4 at Mount Pleasant, so I got to go to all of them. No matter, there was no competition at that time, but I got to sing against people from all the little churches. That's where I met Roger Reed from Fullerton, and Leonard Lisa from Carlingford, and cousin Barry Hodge from Mount Pleasant. All those years we tended to end up together, and there'd be an Ernie Dow, my other cousins from up the road, and there'd be 8 or 9 of us in the class. And I forget, in grade 4 they had us all line up for pictures, and I think that year Roger Reed actually won, and I came in 8th. I was the last. But I think there was a reason for that, and we had a very curious music teacher in that year, and for some reason the ring finger on his right hand had been broken, and it stuck off at a very strange, weird angle a couple directions. And I remember being a little boy that was the most fascinating thing. And he had caught on to me doing this, and I think our relationship kind of suffered a little bit because during that musical competition, he actually stopped playing in the piece. I think he made a mistake, and I turned to look at him, and it broke my concentration. So, anyway, that was maybe getting even for it. But and all through the other years, I would get marked down too. But I remember all the grade 8 girls in the public school, like the Russells and Marlene Fraser and Linda and Karen and Joyce. They all stuck up for me when I would get bad marks, and I always loved them for that, to have them, because they were the big sisters I never really had. So the churches, the countryside, the population was going away, and they couldn't support them all, and there were amalgamations going on, and we came to Thames View, and with its lovely stained glass windows. And I remember my first Sunday school class was up in the vestry upstairs, where behind well, actually in the room where Rod keeps all his music now with. We'd be up there with Roy Meadows every Sunday morning. And I remember one Sunday morning, I really didn't want to go, and Mom was dropping us off in the parking lot, and I cranked the car door closed right in my thumb. And I pulled it out, and it started to bleed. Well, Mom was already way down the road, and I figured, well, she wasn't going to come back and get me over this, because it was my fault. So I remember wrapping a Kleenex around my thumb and going up to Sunday school class, and it started to drip through blood through the Kleenex, and I had to lick it to keep it from dripping on my suit the whole class. But the good thing was about all that thing was my thumbnail, when it grew back, it was the right thickness to gap the spark plugs on my snowmobile. So there was some good came out of that. So I also spent time in the Thames View Choir. My sister went into the choir, and I remember taking a keen interest in one of her friends that sat down 2 rows and in front of me to the left. I've been here since, and I have had spent all of my life, when I'm not going to school and working in different places, and being a member of Thames View. And I have married well, and I've brought Kate to the congregation, and I think a large part of my contribution is now done.